everybody, and welcome to another amazing video of DIY investing. Today we are going to be mapping out why the final year of this bull market is the most profitable one for investors, why we all need to be positioned in the correct ways right now to capture the majority of the profit possible, because I'm telling you guys right now, we've never seen such prime market conditions with institutions. Retail is about to be coming like crazy, and when all of this stuff takes place at the same time, we're going to see the price appreciation of these assets go up tremendously. I wanted to map out the price. I wanted to go through my favorite charts of not only Bitcoin but altcoins as well, because I'm telling you guys right now, if you're positioned correctly in this final year of the bull market, you have the real potential of making financial fortune beyond your wildest dreams. And I want to make sure that you guys know exactly what I'm watching for going into this year. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you find any value in this video, please do me a favor, hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. And without further ado, let's jump right into this amazing video today. Alrighty guys, here we are jumping into today's video. The thing I wanted to talk about right off the bat, going through Bitcoin, going through the Bitcoin dominance, and making sure you guys understand the premise of why this ties with our altcoins and what the altcoin charts I'm going to be sharing with you guys actually mean today. Because I'm telling you guys, I got a lot of charts that I know are going to help you guys out tremendously. They're important charts that anybody that understands these in just a real basic way has a real opportunity of making the most amount of profit possible in the same ways that I've done over my course of investing over the last 8 and 9 years. Going into this cycle, this is more prime than anything we've ever seen. We have institutional investors for the first time ever, genuine institutions, and everybody, even in the presidential scene, is going to be streamlining a lot of these laws that are going to be positive for crypto adoption, appreciation, all of those things. I think it's a perfect storm going into this year of 2025, and the charts are lining up with this. So going over all of our cycles, this is where we're at right now. Bitcoin's at $95,000, currently sitting in new all-time highs. But when we're looking at how all of this correlates, I wanted to take a step back. I wanted to go all the way back to our final cycles in not only our last cycle, but 2017 as well, because these are going to be telling the same story that we're seeing today. And I think it's important that you guys understand this. Going into this current bull market, we're going to be looking at the final end of the bull market, right? And what I mean by that is the final year. If we're going into our cycle top for Bitcoin, and we're going 365 days down from that move, you're pretty much looking at December 12th of 2016. It was in the final year for Bitcoin that we saw the vast majority of that price appreciation. Because remember guys, it takes 3 years to get to that point of making a new all-time high. If we're looking at the all-time high that we made in 2013, all the way over to this point in which Bitcoin finally got that final year in the bull market, you're looking at over 1,100 days. So at that point, it takes 3 years of all of this slow, drawn-out price action that doesn't do anything, and then in the final year of that bull market, you see the vast majority of that price appreciation. And if we're looking at where we take place inside of the Bitcoin dominance, you're pretty much looking at right here. So 365 days following the same thing, you're looking at Bitcoin dominance being right about this price here, or even all the way back down to here. Notice how it still made a big lower low after this. What that means, and the reason why it's different, is because if we zoom in, Bitcoin peaked at 20K, but it made this lower high, and then the lower high at 16, 17K. That was where altcoins ended up making their final blow-off tops. So altcoins lagged, and it was when Bitcoin made its lower high to begin its bear market that the altcoins made their final blow-off tops. And that's why we saw this make even one more big drop after. So it was pretty much the same, in our last bull market, although what we ended up seeing was Bitcoin peaked at its cycle top at the same time altcoins did. But we followed the same pattern. If we're looking over here in 2017, all the way drawing our line to our all-time high. If we're looking at the same sort of pattern, we peaked at our cycle top up here at 69K. If we're going 365 days down from that point, you're pretty much looking at the very midpoint of November. You're pretty much looking at November at the prior all-time high just before we went into a new all-time high of that cycle. But once again, guys, 3 years of kind of just choppy, all up and down, not really doing anything. And then in the final year of that bull cycle is where the vast majority of that price appreciation takes place. And that's also where the Bitcoin dominance ends up selling off. Now, this was a little bit different. If we're looking at basically November 9th November 9th is going to be taking place right here. But you notice we made one more final kind of bull trap here in Bitcoin dominance before we dropped. It doesn't really change anything, but we can see things like that take place. In this cycle, maybe we see one more final bull trap before that drop takes place. However, in 2017 and 2016, it just instantly started selling off when altcoins started to break out with Bitcoin. But we saw roughly the same thing again. Remember, it's in that final calendar year that the Bitcoin price makes the biggest move, but then in that same move, the altcoins outperform it, right? The final year of the bull market is really the year of the altcoins. And that was the case in 2017 here. 2017 we had this entire move right there. In the last cycle, it was a much smaller move for the altcoins, but it was still in that final year that the altcoins end up outperforming. So coming into this current cycle today, we haven't seen anything that different, in my opinion. The time frames are all the same. If we're pretty much just looking at this final calendar year, we can draw that at the end of 2025. So let's just go with December 2025, considering that's where basically most of the last cycles have ended up peaking at. And we'll say that 250K is a potential target that we could hit. So we're going to go to mid-December. So that's going to be taking place pretty much here. So if we're looking at the final year of this bull market, we have to understand that Bitcoin dominance has had this big run over the last 3 years in the same ways that it did in the last cycle, kind of in the same ways that it did even in, the last bull market, the first bull market for the altcoins. But up to this point, it's just been outperforming as Bitcoin's been uptrending, as Bitcoin's made this new all-time high. But we remember that in the final year of that bull market, that's where the altcoins end up stealing the spotlight. So as long as Bitcoin's going to keep going up, which I do believe it will, we can see Bitcoin make these big moves. It can have these big corrections, but Bitcoin can keep creeping up here in these big peaks and stuff, have these big cycles. And throughout this period, as Bitcoin runs from 100K to 200K, 250K, we don't truly know exactly how high it goes. But if we're going to see something along the lines of this, we're either going to make one more final bull trap like what we did in the last cycle, or we're just going to pretty much sell off like what we did in 2016 and 2017. I don't know exactly, but the way that this is setting up, I can see either or. This looks like it could be one more final leg before we make kind of a final blow off top, I guess you could say, just one more peak like what this did over in our last cycle before we sell off and go back down like that. Or this could already be that lower high that we're seeing right here. It's a lower high, it's just going to consolidate, it's going to reject right here, and we'll see it ultimately sell off like that. Those are the two scenarios that I see. But the big thing I want you guys to be aware of is there's nothing that's proving that this trend is changing up to this point. Every single cycle, we see Bitcoin in the final year make that big move, but it always ends up underperforming the altcoins. And so as we've seen Bitcoin dominance creeping up here higher and higher over the last 3 years, to me it makes the most sense that we're going to end up following the same type of outline going into this current year of 2025. So what that means going for the altcoins, now we need to jump into that. Coming over here, we're going to take a look at the price of the altcoins from the long-term basis, looking at all of our prior cycles, because these are showing the same similarities. Now, we're going to go to our first cycle, because I think that this thing really shows the same exact setup that we're seeing today. Now, this is going to be the very cycle bottom. After our bear market, technically the dominance peaked up here at like 350 million in market cap. So if this whole price was here, it would do something like this, and we'd have a price like that. Prior cycle, it'll look something like this, right? So when we're looking at this, we made this consolidation. This was the bottom of our bear market. We didn't do anything, and then we made that first breakout, that first higher high, and it was at the very bottom of that higher high that the beginning of this year starts, right? So we're basically looking at 365 days over, right there. So it was in this first breakout that the first year, or the final year of that bull market, I should say, 2017 started. And this is what the altcoins did in that final year. They just exploded in price, and that was the biggest cycle we've ever seen, not only for Bitcoin, well, I wouldn't say Bitcoin, but for altcoins for sure, and the total of crypto, yes. Now, coming over here in our last bull market, it was pretty much the same, right? Had the blow off top, we made the same sort of, bear market correction that we follow through with. We consolidate here for a couple years, and then it's right as we start to make higher highs and higher lows, the price breaks out of this bear market consolidation. We flip it as support. It was right at the ending of that the final year of our bull market starts of 2021. And we can see that the altcoins didn't do anything but go down and sideways. And then in the final year, is where all of the price appreciation into new all-time highs, all of the bullish price appreciation kind of starts in. So this is the same thing that's following through every single cycle. Nothing has changed up to this point. And when we're looking at where we're at today, it still is holding true once more. We're looking at this price, and the price is sitting all the way up here near these all-time highs, and we're honestly front running what we did in the last cycle, and maybe even front running what we did in 2016 and 2017. We've already made these higher highs. We're already sitting just below those prior all-time highs. We pretty much already consolidated off of them. And so whenever this thing decides to move, I think that it's really just following through with the same consolidation. Bitcoin could outperform during this period here as they're working on actually getting outside of new all-time highs. During that period, we could still see the Bitcoin dominance creep up, like I stated here, where maybe this thing makes one more final bull trap like what we did in our last cycle. That's something that we can still be watching for, but I don't think it changes anything, guys. In that final year of the bull market, that's where the altcoins have their turn to run. And I do think that with us sitting at these all-time highs already, it shows that there's already a lot more buy support in the altcoins than there ever has been up to this point. And so that tells me that once they get inside of price discovery, that's where we're really going to see these things pick up in a big way. And if we're just comparing what happened in the last cycle, from our prior all-time high, looking right here, to the point of us peaking, we basically ran like 260% into price discovery from making the all-time high. From the prior all-time high of the last cycle, 265% into price discovery. The same type of a move for us into this cycle would basically be like $6.2 trillion in market cap. And I think that that's a small number to target, considering our last cycle was much smaller than all of our prior bull markets because of the pandemic. So we can see this thing maybe even run all the way to $10 trillion, maybe even 15 trillion if we got real crazy. I wouldn't be surprised to see that at all. But the big thing is, if that's all going to take place, think about how small and dwarfed this prior cycle is going to be. If we run to 10 trillion, that's all the way up here. If we run to 15, that's all the way up here. That prior cycle starts to get dwarfed in comparison. And that's basically what we're expected to see over these bull markets. It happens every single time. And whichever new altcoins are coming on scene that are going to get a lot of adoption, institutional involvement, we're going to see these things explode in a crazy way. And I've got nothing but confidence this cycle is going to be more primed than ever before, which is why, to finish this up, I wanted to go through and look at a couple of the altcoins that I actually got into early in the last cycle, how their charts looked, and why I think that it's so accurate with what we're seeing today, and really what you guys should be looking for in altcoin setups before you buy them right now. Coming over here, the chart I wanted to look at first is going to be Terra Luna. Terra Luna was one that I made a lot of money on in the last cycle, and I actually did end up taking almost all of my profit before, it ultimately collapsed. So I don't have a problem talking about this one, although that's kind of the big thing going into this cycle. You might find some big winners, and they might go completely to zero in the next cycle, which is why I think that we have to be really aware that regardless of which winner we get into, take your profits and don't feel bad, because I promise you guys, if you take your profits sometime mid this year to even the end of this year, by the time the bear market is over, you're going to be able to buy at a much bigger discount than even what those prices are at that point. So I think that that's something to be aware of. You don't want to potentially risk these going bankrupt or going to zero or whatever. You want to take your profits and get out. So when we're looking at Terra Luna, I got into this one really early. I got into this at 32 cents, right when it made its first high and corrected back down. And this is one that ended up running super hard in its final year. Keep in mind that the final year was basically right here. This is where the beginning of 2021 starts. So in the beginning of that year, the final year of the bull market, this is all in which Terra Luna ended up doing. And keep in mind, the reason I'm talking about Terra Luna is because it was one of the biggest outperforming altcoins of the last cycle. Whichever altcoins outperform the most, they're going to do these type of setups. And this is what we ended up seeing from Luna. That final year of the bull market, this thing went up hundreds of X's in value if you would have got in early just based off of that one thing. If you would have just started throwing money at random altcoins, knowing in the final year that's when things run the hardest, you could have bought into this, because that's all I did. I didn't know that Terra Luna was anything special. I got lucky, and I'm going to be honest about that. And that's all we're really doing. You might have a hunch about a coin, You might buy into it and you might be proven right. And, at the end of the day, that you're smarter than me. But for the most part, I've made a lot of money just being early to coins and just getting lucky by being early to them, not really knowing if they were going to be anything big. And that's the way that I've been, playing these markets over the course of my years. And this is one I made most of my profit on this first move. I sold almost all of it on that first high. And I ended up leaving 10K in the position that turned into another 100. All of that went to zero on this move. So at the end of the day, I still ended up losing a good amount, but that was just a moon bag left over that I didn't care about. The same thing's going to happen in this cycle. I'm not saying that they're instantly going to go to zero. A lot of them will though, and that's why we got to take our profits. But understanding that, we're still right here. We're still in the final, we just began the final year of this bull market. So when we're looking at how all of these other prior cycles have played out, we are still at the point where if we look at their charts, we can't even see them anymore because the price went up so high that they're just like not even visible on the chart. And so when we're looking at this cycle, the same thing's going to happen again, which is why we need to do our part by holding throughout this year, trying to maximize the fullest potential of this cycle that we can, because this is the same thing that's going to be taking place once more. And we have the same setups once more, throughout the board, except there's way more altcoins than there's ever been. There's more on-chain opportunities than there's ever been. And to me, that's really where all of the profit is going to be made. Coming over here and looking at Decentraland, this is another one that I bought really early on. I accumulated this one right over, I believe it was somewhere inside of this move, and I held it for a long time before it ever ended up doing anything. If we're looking at where the final year of our bull market starts right here at the very bottom of this consolidation, after we just broken out of this consolidation bottom from our bear market, held it as support. It was at the very end of that we get the beginning of 2021. And this is what took place in the final year of that cycle. Huge move. And this is another one of those that I wouldn't say I got lucky on this one because I knew that I was just trying to get into a VR play early on, a metaverse play. So it wasn't really a lucky play so much, but this is just another one of those that was lucky because we don't know which ones are going to do this. At the end of the day, we're always just getting lucky. I turned $500 from here into $100,000 here. And it was almost exactly 100 grand before it started going down. And I remember looking at it and just thinking, man, I can't believe that was $500. I'm going to hold it forever. And at this point, I think it's worth like $5,000. So that's why I always tell you guys, take your profit. When these things are going to run, you want to lock up your profits because I'm telling you guys, when you're looking at where they end up bottoming at in their cycle lows, you can always come back down and buy these at a discount. And you're better off taking your profit up here before it goes back down 90%. But Decentraland is another example of this. Just what takes place in that final year is where all of the upside is in. So if you've been buying altcoins up to this point, accumulating positions, this is really where we've been building our positions just to hold from this point. We don't want to be chasing things. We don't want to be following a lot of new crap all the time. On-chain stuff that are really low market cap, I think are always going to be profitable, meme coins, things. But if we're getting our long-term positions, now is kind of where we just want to hold it, right? We're just holding until we take profits, whether, you take mid profits, kind of like what this did here. Notice how Terra Luna and Mana all did the same move where they made their first big breakout in a price discovery, made these big corrections, and then they finished their blow-off tops. This is what a lot of these altcoins are going to do. Same thing happened here. First move into new all-time highs, blow off top. All of these altcoins are going to do the same thing. So you can take profits on this move, but you have to compound inside of that correction if you're going to do it right. And then, you can ride out that final move into price discovery. I do think the same things are going to be playing out once more. And when we're looking at these altcoins, they're just at the point of finishing their bear market bottoms. Looking at where Mana was in the last cycle when I bought it, we kind of look like the same chart where we've just kind of chopped around here. We're finally starting to make higher highs. It's all, relatively similar. This is all holding support, failed breakdown, failed breakdown, failed breakdown. Once it breaks out, gets above this range here, that's where this thing's just going to absolutely send it. And I don't find it coincidental that it looks just like it did in the final year of its bull market in the last cycle. Same thing as it does today. So anyways, guys, this is the video I had for you. I think I covered enough. But with that being said, guys, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you guys do want to end up seeing anything I'm investing in long term, you can always join and sign up for my Discord server, linked in the description through my website. If you guys want to get private access to follow my trades, all of that type of stuff, it's in the description of my YouTube videos. You're going to be able to sign up for my website, and that's how you get total access to anything I'm doing inside of that group. But with that being said, if you guys do want to check it out, links are in the description. I love you. I appreciate you guys. Looking forward to riding out this final year because I'm telling you it's going to be a big one. With that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one. As always, peace out.